Hello, David Mann here again. Today I'd like to look at improvisation. I think classical guitar is, a lot of classical musicians get the idea that they really shouldn't be improvising, they should be following the score exactly and trying to express the composer's feelings. But I think we forget that Mozart, Beethoven, Chopin, etc. were great improvisers. I think Barrios in the guitar world was a good improviser, right? So improvisation is a big part of producing music, creating music. Now, maybe you're not interested in composing, you just want to learn the guitar, that's fine. I still think the freedom, the expression, the kind of creativity, spontaneous creativity that you get from practicing a bit of improvisation will definitely help your other technique in classical guitar. It might make you a bit more confident, a bit freer. Now, how do we start? Improvise doesn't mean ad-lib, in the sense of ad-lib being at liberty. It doesn't mean you're completely free. You have to have some sense of what the patterns are that you're allowed to follow. Now, classical music has some pretty complicated, figured bass and Bach chorales. There's a lot of complicated harmony rules. But I was looking at a lead guitarist's manual years and years ago, and they just gave this very simple idea of a related scale. So, you're the rhythm guitar is playing C major, and the lead guitar has to pick out notes from the C major scale. Right? Just don't go too far away from that. If you hit a wrong note that's not in the C major scale, make sure you resolve quickly. It might sound like a bit like a blues note or something. Right? Now, if the rhythm guitar moves to D minor, he's not changing key. It's just chord 2 in C major. So you can still pick out notes from the same scale. It's the same related scale. You might pick out different notes. So when the C is playing, and then D minor, you're just picking out notes from the chord, adding in a few notes, and then sometimes you hit on a really interesting melody. So let's see how I got on. I transformed myself into two guitarists and had a bash at a bit of improvising. I made it very Latin. I feel that on the classical guitar, I can't play the blues, and it's not quite the right sound. Jazz has a lot of complicated chords, typically. I never really got to grips with that. So I've come up with this. It's just a very simple chord progression, alternating from C major 7 to D minor 7, back and forward. And with a bit of bongos, it has a sort of Latin feel, and that suits the classical guitar much better, the nylon string guitar much better. Right, let's see how it got on. not sure my rhythm was quite on all the time. And, you fluff a few notes sometimes. Part of improvising is learning not to be too afraid, right? That polished performance of a well-practiced piece isn't what you're aiming at. You're aiming at expressing a feeling, I think, and taking risk. Sometimes you end up with this, wonderful moment, and sometimes you end up with a fluffed note, right? You just keep trying. So let's look at a few ideas that might help you. Right, here's my other half over on the left. Let's start him up. And I wanted to show you a few simple ideas. First, just play the notes of the relevant chord. So when he's playing C major, C, E, G, when he's playing C major 7, C, E, G, B, right? When he's playing D minor 7, D, F, A, C. That just gets you started, reminds you of what the chord progression is. Then when you do that, something might occur to you. It might occur to you to try a little bit of a melody. And if you get lost, just come back to the arpeggio. Right, let's have a bash at that. You see what I mean? It just stuck to those two arpeggios, C major 7, D minor 7, just going up, and then it occurred to me to try that note, another note, and it, sometimes it sounds pretty good, sometimes it's a bit bland. Keep playing around like that in what, other people might call jam sessions, and you may in fact come up with something really quite wonderful. And when you get used to a simple chord progression like C major 7, D minor 7, alternating like that, moving on to a slightly more sophisticated one that you might steal from a bossa nova song, and just a little bit more complicated, right? You practice your scales, make sure you know which chord goes with which scale, and you might come up with a whole new song, So another idea would be those lovely luscious major and minor thirds, and sixth also sound absolutely lovely. Let's try a few of those. Not quite what I wanted, but as I keep saying, you've got to take risks, you try things out, and you end up discovering something. Let's try using broken sixth. I'll break up sixth and see what that sounds like. Right? Pretty nice. Then you can break up the rhythm sometimes. He's playing a kind of fairly straight 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, and you can put in some triplets. Let's see how that goes. Right, so those are a few ideas. Related scales, stick to the notes of the related scale. Even more strictly, stick to just the chords, the arpeggio of the chord that is in the accompaniment. And then just slide away from that a little bit, adding in a few more notes, in the hope that you might discover a nice melody. Try out some thirds and sixths, They can sound really quite luscious on a classical guitar. And then breaking up the rhythm a bit. Obviously syncopation, but that idea of putting triplets over a kind of basically duplet time can be a nice break in the rhythm. Right, so I hope that helped. Give it a try. Make sure you ask your teacher or your friend to play a very simple chord progression that has a kind of Latin feel, so a few sevenths in there make it sound a bit more Latin. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. So thank you very much, and I hope you'll come and listen to me again when I talk about other aspects of learning to play the classical guitar.